Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome in mmjhl fans into the return of the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast here on G-Show Productions. Happy to be back here on this Friday night, a bit later than expected. Been one of those weeks, been one of those past 2 weeks to be honest with you. But happy to be back, like I said. And yeah, we were in Stonewall last night to broadcast the Pembina Valley Twisters matchup between the home team, the Stonewall Jets. We don't have highlights for tonight's match for that matchup, but we will have them available on our Sunday MMJHL Game Day broadcast live from East End Arena, as we'll be broadcasting the Transcona Sunday matchup. But yeah, what we're going to be doing in this episode tonight, as you can see on the graphic, or as you saw on the graphic, or might have to start off this episode, it's a season review, Volume 1. We're going to be doing this about 1 or 2 more times this year. Maybe doing another one in a few months, and then the next just before playoffs start, a bit of a playoff preview at that. Maybe we even do 3, having one at the end of the season. But regardless, what's going to be happening tonight, I'm going to be showing you the scores, the standings from around the league, and then team graphics for all 10 teams, dotting down different points of, their season so far, kind of describing how things have been going for these teams. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. I hope you are as well, here on the official Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast, the MMJHL podcast, live on gshow.ca on G-Show Productions for Season 2, Episode 9. Scores and standings, and also updates from tonight's games to come right away. Well, of course, this episode brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, Goaltenders, and Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools. Been a lot of fun covering this league so far this year. Getting to do it a bit earlier compared to last year, as we've had more coverage for you all. Unfortunately, most of our November games to this point haven't been broadcasted due to our technical difficulties, but I can assure you the rest of our November schedule, which is available on our website as well as on our Instagram, we'll be rounding that out and hopefully broadcasting all the games coming up. But yeah, as for the game results from last week in the MMJHL, it was the Stonewall Jets with a big 5-4 win over the Victorias to start things off. St. James, big win, 7-1 over the Pembina Valley Twisters. Transcona as well, winning in a bit of a track meet with the Fort Garry Twins. Then it was the battle of the first place teams heading into that Sunday matchup that was played in the afternoon at East End between Transcona and Charleswood, where Transcona, even though the Hawks pushed, would hold on for that 4-3 victory. As for the other results that ended up coming on Tuesday. There were 3 games played on Tuesday and another one played last night. We had last night's game on the network. The Jets winning 8-4 over the Pembina Valley Twisters. St. Vital with a bit of a statement game. 1-0 victory over the St. Boniface Riels, a team that's been struggling by the numbers defensively in terms of their goals against so far this year. St. James and Fort Garry both putting up 7 pieces on the Raiders Junior Hockey Club for Fort Garry, and St. James dummying the River East Royal Knights 7-2. As for tonight, 5 games in action. There's 5 games that are going to be action on Sunday as well. Of course, as mentioned, we'll have that game between the Railer Express and the St. James Junior Canucks at 2 p.m. as that should be an exciting one. Top team in the league right now taking on a team that's near the bottom of the playoff spots right now for St. James. Speaking of, we'll get into the scores from what's happening right now, has happened tonight from around the mmjhl. This is a huge one to start things off. Wow, the Pembina Valley Twisters battling to beat the Charleswood Hawks in regulation at that. So Pembina Valley, 3 wins now on the season, 3-14-1 for them. Charleswood falls to 12-4-1. The Riels, absolute dominance tonight over the River East Royal Knights with an 8-1 lead right now. A 5-goal second period for the squad. McNaughton has 2 goals on the night. 6 different goal scorers outside of McNaughton scored also tonight for this team. Anthony Jacob, the only goal scorer for the River East Royal Knights. Here's another big one. The Transcona Railer Express, 10-0 victory over the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. Big, dominant win tonight for this Railer Express team that put up 51 shots in that one compared to the Raiders' 20. Chudley with 2 goals, as well as Vandenbush with 2. For St. James and the Victorias, the Vics, 3 goals in the third period. They're up 4-2 in this matchup as that third period just ended. Shots even at 41 apiece in that one. And as for the Stonewall Jets, they fall to the Fort Garry Twins as Fort Garry gets the win in overtime. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the standings. So these standings will change. Transcona is going to get that 13th win. They now move to 81 goals for on the season. Pembina Valley now with 3 wins on the year. That's huge too for Transcona. And huge for St. Vital, as it allows for St. Vital to now tie Transcona in the standings with their win over the Canucks tonight, and for Transcona to stay 4 points in front of Charleswood. But as you can see here in the standings, very tight for sure within the 8 playoff spots. River East, well, their loss tonight not doing them any favors in trying to get back into the playoff hunt. For Pembina Valley, I mean, for them, it's just about taking things one step at a time, I think, at this point, and not worrying as much about the wins, but worrying more about the process. And that process coming through big time tonight. What a win for this Twisters team, who, once again, in another victory, similar to their win against the Transcona Railer Express, relying on their goaltending in that one. 49 shots on goal for Charleswood. In their loss, as Mason Mazaret ended up getting the start. And for Mason, he ended up coming in last night for the Pembina Valley Twisters after the Jets put up an 8th one past Darian Penner. Mazaret was in net for one of the goals. But Mazaret was really solid, and this was Pembina Valley Twisters team going out and scoring more goals in that third period compared to the Jets last night at 2-1. And I think, for Pembina Valley, they definitely built some good momentum off of that win. Maybe could have argued a bit tired going into tonight's matchup given that they played last night, but that seemed to have benefited them, as I should say. They actually started off tonight up 2-1 after that first period of action. Charleswood would end up tying the score up at 4 apiece heading into that third period of action. And yeah, for the Pembina Valley Twisters, it ends up being Katima Wall, who scores the goal on the power play, and this team also scoring 2 goals shorthanded. So, bit of a disaster tonight for this Charleswood Hawks team, but hey, learn your lesson from it and move on for the Twisters. And try to tap into more of this type of results, because yeah, that's been lacking from them this year with a 3-14-1 record. And speaking of the Pembina Valley Twisters, they've also taken their management in a new direction, as John Mintenko was named the new GM of Pembina Valley as per November 16th. As the article reads there, he brings a wealth of experience and leadership to this Twisters team, and always great to have someone that's passionate. Why wouldn't you want someone that's passionate near at the top of the organization, helping running it? And it seems like this team very excited to have John as their new general manager. And speaking of Pembina Valley, not sure if John was involved in these moves, but it was a big move made by them, a big trade, as I should say, as they end up receiving Jackson Filion, Vlad Stepik, and Noah Slobosian, along with Aiden Hyra, in exchange for Alex Van Dynes and Michael Hepner. Hepner, of course, a 2003 born player, going to be aging out this year. He ends up going to a team that looks to be among one of the top contenders in the mmjhl this season. Van Dynes, a bit younger, heading to St. Boniface, and I'm sure he's happy as well to get on a team that has been doing so good. I wonder how these players feel, though, being with Pembina Valley, especially Michael Hepner, for all these years and then getting traded. I feel like it's got to be surreal. And you got to wonder, for St. Boniface, how the players they feel, being sent there, based on the travel time. But had a chance to watch Vlad Stepik last night. He's a solid player. He's got a few more years left. I think this move, kind of par for the course for a Twisters team that, playoffs, anything can happen at this point. They could still, of course, make it in. They just got to start putting together, a few long winning streaks. But these moves more signifying looking towards the future for this team. Was wondering where Mike Hepner would get dealt, given the situation in Pembina Valley this year. Felt like that could have been a possibility. Well, the answer gets answered. The question gets answered back on November 3rd. As for some other moves that happened for the River East Royal Knights, really like this one player in particular, again, Seth Hasker, really solid goaltender, had a pretty consistent, steady career for the College Belleville Barracudas in the Winnipeg High School Hockey League. So yeah, I think that they should be excited about him. Parker Carrolls, of course, a 2006 born player, and Brock Massery, also 2007 born. Bonnie and the crew, Barry Bonnie and his crew down there, continuing to get younger on the roster, trading away, an older player in Aaron Bertschinger to the St. Boniface Riels. So the Riels made a lot of big moves on that November 3rd date. As for the other moves here on the league, as you can see, Steven Kutras, that one on November 15th. He looked really good for the Stonewall Jets last night. He goes the other way for a more experienced player by age in Austin Maniager. All the moves can be seen on mmjhl.ca, by the way, from the start of this 2024-2025 season up until now. Just got to search for it under the news tab. But as for what's to come next here on the mmjhl podcast, we are going to be taking a quick little transition here. Actually, we're going to be showing the Can Central Sports Cards commercial coming up, and then I'll be back to take you through all 10 teams here in the league and outlook on all of them as we continue to roll along here in the mmjhl season in 2024-2025 on this podcast, brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. More to come after this quick commercial break. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Welcome back to this edition of the mmjhl podcast. Man, I hate that when I forget to unmute myself, but remembered quicker this time, and this season already, it's been going by kind of quick at this point. I mean, we're almost in December here, ladies and gentlemen, and the standings, as we'll show you again here in the mmjhl, really tight at this point. These outdated at this point based on the games that happened tonight, but yeah, all 8 playoff teams so far vying and fighting for positioning, jockeying for positioning in the standings, trying to get up higher. It'll be interesting to see which teams stay in their places, which teams rise, and which teams could potentially fall as this season goes along. But we'll take a look at some stats leaders now, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. It's still Tyler Rubini up top with 17 goals. He's been on a bit of a goalless streak. I'm sure once he gets back into it, though, we could be seeing him putting up quite the goal totals again. It's been quite the goal total so far for him, as it's been a few weeks here, and he still hasn't been passed. Peyton Bateman, though, along with Nathan Turner, tied at second with 13 goals each. For Bateman, huge night last night warranted him, of course, getting bumped up based on the stats, him having more stats, of course. Hallman-Daris and Sperber round out the goal leaders there, tied at 12 each. Van Bush and Rory Neal, both tied at 16 assists each. Neal with a significant amount of games less played than most players in this league at 10. He's been phenomenal to start off this year. Big part of the Canucks' success, as always, during his time here in St. James in this league. But yeah, Nechwadyuk and Gorchinski tied at the top of the assist leaderboards at 25 each. As for the point leaders in the league, Bateman and Hallman-Daris tied for 4th at 26. Rubini still on top, Gorchinski and Nechwadyuk in that top 3. And as for the goaltending leaders, still Keegan Gordon on top with an 11-3 record, but the best goaltending duo in the league belongs to this Transcona Railway Express team so far. Maroney, a rookie, along with Sage Delarone, as I should say. Only one loss between the two goaltenders, and that only loss coming in overtime for Sage Delarone. Really solid save percentages as well. Alex Paul should be over Domenico there, as well, as he has a slightly better record and save percentage. Those stats brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. We're going to get into the teams here now coming up. And we're going to start off with the Pembina Valley Twisters, a team that is in unfamiliar territory so far this year. A team that I believe has only missed the playoffs once since entering into the league back in 2017-18. This is a team, like I think I've mentioned in this episode already, or at least throughout this season, that has made it to the finals 3 out of the last 4 years, 4 out of the last 5 years that we've had playoffs in the season. So yeah, the biggest thing this team has going for them so far this year has been their special teams, ranking top 3 in both. Their special teams came up huge here tonight against the Charleswood Hawks with 2 unanswered shorthanded goals, and then that game winner on the power play scored by Keta Mawal for his 6th of the season. Overall, in this matchup, it was pretty clean by the statistics, too. So the Twisters were able to stay out of the box, only going into the box once or twice. Sharma and Golfer getting the penalties in that one here tonight. But yeah, how do you rebuild if you're this team, though? Even though you get to a third win, you're still quite a bit out of the race, and you've already dealt, some significant players to a contender in the St. Boniface Reals, getting a bit younger. And yeah, I think for this Twisters team, it's about, getting these players coming in comfortable, as they'll most likely be there next year. And it's about, building on their process, not worrying as much about the wins, I think, for this Twisters team. Now, the wins could come through good process. It's just about displaying that. But do they have the ability to be consistent? This is a team that lost quite a bit of talent from last year's finalist roster, a team that their bread and butter last season was their defensive zone play. It was part of their identity. That's been gone so far this year. As for the Twisters, 96 goals against so far through 18 games. A team that isn't as clean in the defensive zone, but a team that, can still get good goaltending performances, like we saw here from Mason Mazerat stealing that game in a way against the Charleswood Hawks. So, yeah, they got some good pieces overall, though. This Pembina Valley Twisters team nowhere near as strong as the teams of the past. This, by the history books, one of the worst in their franchise's history, but there is some opportunity for them to prove people like me wrong this year, and for them to potentially get some more wins, as we still got plenty of season left here to play. As for the River East Royal Knights, they've had struggles since opening weekend. They went 2-0 there. Since then, they've lost their fair share of games. They're now 4-11-1, 4-12-1 after that 8-1 loss tonight against the St. Boniface Reals. This is a team with a younger roster. They got strong top returning players in terms of players like, the Anthony Jacobs on this team. And taking a look at their player statistics, Graham Maslow, also a player in your Kalen Reynolds, who has been pretty solid for this team so far this year. Logan Ash, a young player that was near the top of the goal leaderboards near the start of the year. He's got 8 so far this year. Manny Manuk as well has been solid in the pipes when he's, had the opportunity to shine. He has for this River East team. So they got some talent there. This team went out and got a bit younger roster-wise by making some moves for some younger players. I think that Seth Hasker is going to be a player that could develop nicely in the pipes even more here in River East, depending on if he gets some opportunity to play this season or not. But yeah, I think for River East heading into this year, coming off of a season last year where they end up finishing dead last in the league, I think a lot of people from who I talked to were kind of surprised by their hot start. Which was a 2-0 start. They've come back down to earth in the standings, right? Now sitting in 9th place. But this is a team that still, when they do get up to playing their best, can give some teams a bit of troubles and can give them a bit of a challenge. So for River East, kind of the same as Pembina Valley, right? You're quite a ways out of the points race right now in the playoffs, not as far as Pembina Valley, even though Pembina Valley is only 2 points out of tying River East in the standings. I think for this River East squad, it's about same thing as Pembina Valley. Playoffs, could they be on the table? Yes, but you don't want to worry as much about your record as it is for working on your good process and getting the players that are going to be here for the next few years more comfortable in the systems, as well as just building that confidence, game in and game out with a good process. And yes, losing is tough and it could kind of affect that, but as long as you're giving good efforts and giving 100%, like it's been said in this league, the teams who come ready to play and are locked in to go from the get-go are the teams that usually are going to have a lot of success. This River East team plays with a lot of effort. They may not have the advantages in the skill compared to the other teams overall, but should be interesting to see how that record continues to look as the season goes along for them. As for the St. James Junior Canucks, they're now on track, as that record is wrong. There's 7 wins, 8 losses now, one of those being an OT loss, one being a shootout loss. So yeah, even with the loss tonight, they're now on track. They've fought through adversity this season after starting off a dreadful 0-3. They didn't get a win this season until just taking a look at their schedule. Until their victory against the River East Royal Knights. And after that, this team started to, get back into the win column. They had some big wins against a team who was first place at the time in the St. Vital Junior Victorias on October 20th. To end off October, this team ended up losing in OT to the Charleswood Hawks, where they were up by 2 in that game. In the third period, ended up blowing the lead. Tough shutout loss against the Transcona Railer Express. And to start off November, they started off with a loss to the Stonewall Jets. But since then, St. James has come out with 4 wins in their past 6 games. Rory Neal, of course, among the top in assist leaders this year. And he's been, the guy that's been leading the way for this team, and he's got to be. He's been an X factor for this team, and the reason I have him, as a main point here is because this is a way different team when their captain is in the lineup compared to when he's not in the lineup, and I think you could see that really at the start of this season. And yeah, I think for this team, they've weathered the storm now. They're getting to their game. They're getting more confident in their game as well. This is a team that, of course, not as strong on paper compared to last year and the 2 previous years before, as they've won 3 championships in a row, but still a team with good pieces. And with that, we're talking about players like not only Rory Neal, but Ashton Romanek, who, has stepped up by being a top assist leader, among one of the top assist leaders on this team. Griffin Height's been putting the puck in the net at a high level for this team as well this year, second on the team in goals at 8 in 16 games. But it's really about, I think, the impact that Rory Neal has had on this team so far this year. 11 games played, 9 goals leads the team in that, with 25 points, 16 games played. And yeah, I think for this team, they have all the pieces there to be a sleeper team this year, to be honest with you. This is a team that, who knows, as the season goes along, could very well, make their way higher up into the standings. And, I think we got to also remember that this team doesn't have the same coaching staff exactly this year. They don't have the same type of leadership that they've had in the room from the previous years with Cale Price as the captain, right? Having key players there like Noah Gilbert and, Brady Whiteley, and even your top point getter and Tyrone Willen. Those are things that are tough to recover from, especially when teams are giving you their absolute best, knowing that you've won this league 3 years in a row to start off. But as they've found their game, like I've said, they've gotten back on track. Blake Harris has this team playing at a higher level. Their special teams are around middle of the pack. And yeah, this team, their goaltender and Connor Murphy getting better as the season goes along as well. So as they continue to round out their game and they continue to get better, who knows, this team could also add at the trade deadline. Watch for St. James. They're not done yet. Still searching for another championship, looking to win 4 in a row, becoming the first team to do it if they are able to do so, since the Charleswood Hawks did it back in 2011, 2012. On to the next team in the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, as their record is in fact not 5-5, but as we take a look at the standings, take a look there, they are 7-8 and 3 so far. This team, taking a look at it, they're now 7-9-2-1. But yeah, they're a sneaky squad, even though they lost this game by quite a bit tonight to the Transcona Railer Express as they put up a 10-piece on them. That is one thing about this team. When we talk about how they've had success this year, it's kind of been a bend but don't break type of style. They give up a lot of shots, in fact, averaging the most against compared to any other playoff team so far this season, except for, I guess, St. James, now slightly worse than them in that category after the updated stats from tonight. But it's a team that is opportunistic, a team that has good firepower up front. Luka De Sousa's been solid so far. Noah Goodbranson, he's their top player coming into this year, and he's been playing like that so far. They got some good goaltending in net, like on paper. Evan Banera as well as Owen Savoy. But yeah, is their blueprint for success sustainable when you're allowing as many shots as they have this season? And, taking a look at it, they don't average many shots on goal per game at 27.9. That actually ranks second last in the league. So, yeah, a team with good pieces, a team that always seems to be in games, but a team that, has given up big losses already this season, and twice being to the Transcone Railer Express. And, it just kind of seems like every once in a while, based off of this style, this team has been in trouble based off of that and based off of this loss tonight. I do think, though, that this is a team, if they do come ready to play and they're locked in from the get-go, they're going to be in games so far in this season. And I think for this team, their goal would be, if they do make the playoffs, try to get into a position where you're lined up against a team where you have good success against them, or have had good success against them in the past this year. As if this team finishes around the bottom of the playoff standings, if they make it in, you're thinking that Transcone Railer Express, they're probably going to be among the top of the standings if they're able to sustain this type of play. That's one matchup that's been a nightmare for the Raiders so far this year, so something they may want to avoid. But yeah, taking a look back at last year in their quarterfinals matchup against the Pembina Valley Twisters, one of the top teams in the league last year, they gave them a run for their money kind of in those games, kept them close and got some good goaltending. For this team, I think that they could get good goaltending in big games down the line, but it's about if this team can do the necessary things in the defensive zone to survive consistently, right? And do the necessary things to generate good offense up front. Do they have the blueprint for success to sustain that? We'll have to find out as the season goes along. Moving into the team that's in sixth place, where their record also isn't right. They're 8-7-1 so far this year. As we show you the standings once again, with 52 goals for, 59 goals against. I was looking up this term, a term for kind of a bumpy ride in an airplane, since the literal logo of this team, or the literal name, is a jet, in terms of a jet plane. And I found air pockets, and another term for it, I guess, is turbulence, but it's when there's, I guess, here, let's take a look at the definition to say it, or to tell you guys exactly. It's funny, I'm the one who ended up using this term, but yeah, it's the layman's term for turbulence, which is the disruption of the air current that can cause a plane to shake or lose altitude. And the reason I say that about the Stonewall Jets team, if we take a look at the schedule, a team that started off the season 2-0, and then going to 3-1, dropping their first game against the St. Boniface Riels. Here's where, it gets kind of interesting for this team, right? Going into November. October, there were a few losses in there, but overall they come out with an over 500 record. Then they start off November with a very strong win against the St. James Junior Canucks. By the way, their second win against that team this season. But then they go up against the St. Boniface Riels, lose 5-3. Then a 5-3 loss against the Railer Express on November 7th. Then an 8-2 loss against the Charleswood Hawks on November 10th. Holding on to beat the Victorias 5-4 last Thursday. And, of course, winning 8-4 last week. So, overall they've had success in the win column, but there have been some inconsistencies in their game, and their biggest loss of the season, I think, the biggest air pocket in their game came in that 7-0 loss to the Fort Garry Twins back on October 20th. This team got deeper recently, though, adding Steven Kutris from this Charleswood Hawks team in this league. I think that for Kutris, he displayed his skill set yesterday really nicely, complementing both Carson King and Peyton Bateman really well on that top line, as that's already one of the best duos top lines in the league. But that's one big thing about the Stonewall Jets team if we take a look at the statistics, and I think that trade for Kutris could definitely help them out, because, you're able to send a guy in Alex Kaczorowski down further into the lineup, which I think will make this team even deeper and only benefit them more. But yeah, it's been really the top guys that have been leading the way, the top guns for this team, in Peyton Bateman with 14 goals in 15 games played, Alex Kaczorowski with 9. Then we look at Cohen Chang and Carson King as well, who for Chang has 8 goals, for King has 7 goals. But for, the rest of this team, it drops off a bit afterwards, as Jack Adaret is 5th in goal scoring on the squad with 4 goals. So even though they got deeper with that move, getting Steven Kutris, and I think he's going to put up his fair share of goals for this team this season, I think that this team may be lacking, overall depth that's necessary to take them far in the playoffs. If that top line isn't going in the playoffs, maybe their offense starts to dry up. Even then, they're, with these top guys playing the way they are, they're 7th in goals for per game. And defensively, this team can get in the shot lanes and get out of the zone with some ease, but every once in a while, their goaltending's been shaky as well this year. So there's some question marks around the Stonewall Jets team, but they got the top-end talent. They've shown that they can compete with these top teams in the league. Just can they get more consistency in that and faring better against a team like the Fort Garry Twins instead of losing by a score of 7-0? Yeah, this is a well-coached team, and I think expect for them to stay in the hunt. But yeah, for the Stonewall Jets, wouldn't be surprised if we see them finishing in the bottom half of the playoff standings this season, or maybe they finish middle of the pack. Who knows? We'll have to see as this season continues to roll along. We're going to take another transition here, another little break, and I'll be back to go through the next 5 teams here in the mmjhl Volume 1 mid-season outlook here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca, presented by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, as well as goaltenders. More to come here after this transition. Welcome back to this edition of the mmjhl podcast. Late one here, 10:28 currently. We're almost done, though. 5 teams to go here in our outlook on this season review here, Volume 1 here on the mmjhl podcast for Episode 9 in Season 2. By the way, just to let you know, to remind you all, we'll be in East End on Sunday afternoon for a 2 p.m. matchup between the Railer Express and the St. James Junior Canucks. Coverage gets started just after 1:50 on that Sunday afternoon. But we've talked about teams all the way from the Twisters to the Jets. Now we're going to be talking about this next team coming up here, which is not the Stonewall Jets, but in fact the St. Boniface Riels. Finally, that record is right. Well, it was right heading into tonight. Now it's to 11 wins, 6 losses for this St. Boniface Riels team. And yeah, I mean, what much more can you say from this team so far this year defensively? Best defensive team in the league by the goals against statistic, as they have only allowed 40 so far this year. Allowed only 1 tonight. We saw that offense on high display tonight, with McNaughton scoring 2 and then the rest being different goal scorers, 6 other different goal scorers in that matchup. And they made 2 big moves. Going out, and I guess 2 big moves within one, going out and getting Michael Hepner and Alex Van Dynes. Van Dynes adds a bit more depth to this team through, I think, the middle of the lineup. Maybe they'll play Van Dyne's, more so up in that top 6. But either way, that's a solid piece that they get, and they get not only good stability on the back end by bringing in Michael Hepner, but a player that has gone through the process of playing in final series with the Pembina Valley Twisters and brings a wealth of experience to a D-corps that has some experienced pieces, but also some younger pieces. Looking for more, I think, the St. Boniface Riel's team is, though. They got 40.2 shots per game, and they only got 66 goals for. I don't think that's something that, they will stand by and stand with, just seeing that as the season goes along. So, could we be seeing them upgrade by adding even more scoring, or will we be seeing more players step up even more? Even then, even though this offense isn't the most high-powered in the league, they still got really good depth. And, it's a team that scores by committee that's been led this year by their team captain in Connor Davis. This is a team that plays with a lot of pace, that plays hard, that is smothering on the forecheck, and hasn't spent much time in their defensive zone this year. This team has all the pieces to potentially go on a run this year. It's just, can they put it together? In special teams, can that get a bit better for the St. Boniface Riel's team? As yes, their penalty kill has been phenomenal. I feel like that is kind of obvious when this team has been so good defensively, but it's been that power play that's been struggling. A team that moves it around really well, like much of their offensive zone attack on 5-on-5, but it's about, getting more goals for within that quantity that you have. Do we see this team start loading the box up more in front of the net? Do we see even more shots from them, or them maybe looking for more high-quality shots, being a bit more patient? Yeah, we'll have to see as this season goes along. But St. Boniface plays fast, plays hard, has a lot of skill on the squad, and is going to be a handful for the rest of the contenders to handle as this season goes along, of course. But as for the Fort Garry Twins, they also moved to 11 wins, staying tied with the St. Boniface Riels. These teams have identical records. They got back into the win column on Tuesday with a huge 7-1 win over the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. They snapped a 2-game losing streak, and this is a team that had the third best goal differential heading into tonight at plus 21. They're now at plus 22. The only teams that are better than them are St. Boniface, the Hawks as well, as the Transcone Railer Express. But yeah, for this Fort Garry Twins team, a team that added a huge piece in Rylan Huging the start of the year, even though they part ways with Penner. Cole Penner, that has been phenomenal for the Charleswood Hawks, as the 06 born player has been among their top point leaders this year over there for Charleswood. But yeah, as for this Fort Garry Twins team, adding Huging to a line with Gorchinski, that becomes one of the deadliest duos on paper this season in the mmjhl. And yeah, this is just a really complete team, much like the St. Boniface Riels, a team that controls the pace of play, 32 shots per game compared to 25 shots against on average per game. And yeah, Alex Pauls has been really solid this season. They got one of the best defensemen in the league and named the top defenseman last year in Sam Matani returning. Eric Johnson on the back end as well. You add Huging to a really good experience for a group already. This, one of the best Twins teams they've had since the glory days, when they won back-to-back championships at the end of the 1990s decade. It's just about how can you put it together near the end of the season heading into playoffs, as that's when it matters the most for this Twins team. They've had really good rosters throughout the past few years, but haven't made it through the first round of the playoffs since I think 2013-ish, or around there, 2012. It's been quite a while for this team, but they got the pieces to do it. Really high-end offensive talent, good depth up front, a good D-corps, good goaltending. Going to be on the coaching, to be honest with you. They got all the pieces. Can this coaching staff put it together this year for this Twins team? As for the St. Vital Junior Victorias, a statement win on Tuesday here. Is just a moment, folks. We're going to take a quick little transition as my dog is barking at me. Just a moment. We'll be back here on the podcast. And welcome back, everybody. Just had to deal with my dog there. He was barking at me for a bit of attention, and no one around to deal with it. As we get the doors closed here, as we return on episode 9 of the mmjhl podcast. 3 teams remaining to look at here, and we're going into the St. Vital Junior Victorias next. A team that is now at 11 wins on the season. They were at 10 heading into tonight. It was a statement win on Tuesday. Another statement win tonight against the St. James Junior Canucks. And those statements being that this is a St. Vital Junior Victorias team that is showing the rest of the mmjhl that they don't only win in track meets, they're able to win in closer defensive, lower scoring games as well. Even though this game tonight wasn't a defensive masterpiece by both teams, any way you put it, 41 shots each for the two clubs, but that speaks volumes about, St. Vital's goaltending. You take a look at their goaltending that they had tonight. The starter in net for them, it was Ethan Penner. Penner started off the season strong, went through some ups and downs in terms of losing a few games as the season went along, but he has the talent, I think, to do some special things on this year's Junior Victoria's team, and special performance from the young man tonight. But that game against the St. Boniface Riels, they hold them to no goals, their first shutout of the year, so definitely a statement for this St. Vital Junior Victoria's team, as it was Nolan Anderson who ended up scoring the lone goal in a game where it was the Vics who got outshot 37-29, but were able to hold it down in the defensive zone. It was a rough ending to October for this St. Vital Junior Victoria's squad, as they end up, of course, falling apart against the St. James Junior Canucks, blowing that lead and losing 4-3 in overtime, then getting dominated 5-1 against the Charleswood Hawks, losing 6-1 back-to-back, once to the Fort Garry Twins, then to the Transcon Railer Express. And then November even started off with a loss, but it was a lot closer for this St. Vital Junior Victoria's team. A big part of them getting back into the win column, in my opinion, though, is getting healthy again. Rylan Netchwood missed some time near the end of October, and once he got back into the lineup, this Vicks team seemingly finding their game again, as they've only lost once since he's been back. Again, Aiden Anderson has been huge as well. But yeah, offensively, this team's a juggernaut so far this year. They're second in goals for per game in terms of the average. They got 74 goals in 18 games played now for this team tonight in terms of the players who got into the action. It was their top-end players in Ruby, Netruduke, Jaquette, and Kiesman on the back end. And that's going to be their success this season. Where it's going to come from is going to be from those top guys. And it's just about how can the complementary pieces around them do their best to complement them to the best of their abilities. I think about Bill Belichick's old saying, the Patriot way, do your job. That's exactly what every player has to figure out, I think, on this Victoria's team outside of, those top-end guys. And I think that players have been figuring out their games this year and been benefiting from playing their roles. Connor Mitchell, of course, being rewarded with goals for himself this year, 7 heading into tonight, and also playing that antagonizer role, right? So when you're able to have that type of player, that's huge as well. This team has, many players, I think, with a lot of potential to get better as the season goes along, younger players at that, and excited to see for this Victoria's team what those players can do. But defensively, this is been kind of a story for the St. Vital Junior Victoria's team. It has been their struggles these past 2 seasons in the defensive zone. The consistency hasn't been there this year for them. Based off of the stats, obviously 64 goals against, but they added a really good piece in Blake Goretzky to that decor. Also, seeing guys like Jaquette take that next step this year has been huge. But I think most of the defensive struggles could potentially be from this team getting caught in the offensive zone on odd man rushes and stuff like that. How can they eliminate that as the season goes along? You know, can that top end talent continue to carry for this team? I think there's a good possibility that they can. It's about how does that depth step up in the playoffs, as that's when they'll need it next. And of course, can Penner continue to backstop this team the way he has so far this year? Really excited to find out what the answers to those questions will be. As for the Charleswood Hawks, you know, this is a team that's now moved to 12 4-1 on the season, dropping their second straight loss tonight against the Pembina Valley Twisters, and a bit of a shocker, gotta say. Didn't expect this from Charleswood tonight, but hey, maybe they just didn't come ready to play. And yeah, I don't know if that's the case, right? They end up out shooting that Pembina Valley team and coming within a goal of tying them and beating them in this one. But yeah, the story to their success this year from, you know, who I've talked to has been just the mentality before games being locked in. That's something that Matt Carlson really preached. He's been one of their top players this year. And yeah, I mean, they're among the top teams again to start off this year. I think that Charleswood has a chance to once again make it to the Final Four, a really strong one based off of this roster, because it's a healthy balance, even with the loss tonight. Like, I don't think that changes anything unless this team allows it to affect them. I don't expect for this team to slide as so far this year when there's been that possibility. They've ended up getting back in the win column, but they got top goaltender in the league by the record so far this year in Keegan Gordon. This is a team that has depth on the defense, has been one of the best defensive teams, arguably, you know, the best defensive team in the league this year outside of the St. Boniface Riels, and just a lot of speed, depth, skill up front. You know, they don't have one particular star that can hurt you. They got many type of star players that can hurt you. When we're talking about, you know, Tyson Sperber, you know, Matt Carlson, Cole Penner, the list goes on for this team. Newer coaching staff this year, but Dylan Smith has been an assistant coach for the past 2 years for this squad. So yeah, I think that they got all the right pieces in play to make things happen. This is a group that's fell short of a finals appearance, you know, the past 2 years, losing 7 to St. Vital the year before and getting swept last year to St. James. Things have changed around the league, you know, rosters have changed, and for this Charleswood team, they were able to keep a lot of the same pieces. Yes, they lost a piece in Hugen, but made a really good move out of that trade by getting a guy in Cole Penner. And yeah, it's about how can you know, keep up this consistency. I think this team benefits a lot from getting a top 3 spot in the standings if they're able to set themselves up for a first round contest with one of those teams if they're up near the top of the standings, if they can keep their spot there. But we'll end off with the final team. You know, Charleswood, in my opinion, is one of the best built teams in the league, but this team, I think, is built the best. In the Transcontinental Railer Express, they're now 13-1-3 on the season. They've only lost one regulation game, which came in the season opener, and this is a group that's taken a huge leap forward this season. A team that only lost, I believe, one player last season due to aging out, and this year is comprised of skill, speed, and physicality up front, high hockey IQ, good defensive play, and really solid young goaltending. This is a fun team to watch, and they're just built the right way in terms of how you have success in this league, which is constantly pressuring the opponent with a heavy forecheck, dumping that puck in and getting after it, playing physical, laying the body and getting possession, and then, you know, creating offensive zone time off of that. This Transcontinental Railer Express team has done all of that this season and has the roster to do it. They have some big boys on this team, big boys that can score, and even the guys that may not be considered, you know, those traditional big boys, guys with some size and guys that aren't afraid to lay out physicality to dish out hits. When we talk about guys like Chudley and Vandenbush, right? You also got to talk about guys like Turner. Like, this team has so many pieces that can hurt you on the offensive side of things. And also, players on the back end that are really reliable, and a defensive core that, just plays really aggressive and is, always breathing down the neck of their opponents and not giving them much room to work through the neutral zone. And even when things break down, Maroney and Sage Delarone, one of the two, have been able to come up huge and make the saves needed for this team. Even when they get shorthanded, this team, second best penalty kill in the league, first in power play percentage at 22.7, is just everything that you could want in terms of, your hockey team to do well. Transcona is doing well right now, whether it's, being responsible and taking care of your defensive zone, or, capitalizing on your offensive opportunities and, creating a lot of stress on the opponents by having a really, suffocating cycle. And even when teams are trying to break in on you, taking away space through that neutral zone, right? Like, everything has been coming together really great so far for this team this year. And it's a team this year, too, even with the second best penalty kill in the league, has been really disciplined among the teams in the league to take the least penalties so far. So the only thing that really stands in Transcona's way this year, given the talent that they have, top-end point getters, the solid defense, and the goaltending, it's really them being their own worst enemies this year. It's about, can you have that positive mindset throughout this season? And if things, do start to turn and you do kind of face that adversity, you're not winning as much as the season goes along, how do you, get out of that and get back to having that positive mindset and staying in that positive mindset and getting back to your winning ways? I think that's going to be interesting to see how this team deals with adversity when it does come, because that's a given throughout any hockey season, unless, you have kind of that picture perfect season. But yeah, Transcona, I know last time when they were a contender, back in the playoffs, this was, a few years ago now, you can kind of sense, the tenseness on the bench when things weren't really going right in that playoff series back then against the Pembina Valley Twisters. And with Transcona being a favorite, there could have been a lot of pressure they were putting on themselves. So how do you handle the game mentally this year is what I'm trying to say down the line, and how do you, build your game towards getting ready for the playoffs? As this team, I think they can expect to be in there unless something catastrophic happens. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, I guess, where you finish. It's about how you do once you get to the dance. And I think this game, it's about building that game to be ready as best as you can for the upcoming playoffs as the season continues to roll along. Going to be exciting to see if Transcona can keep things up this season and keep their foot on the gas for first place in the league. Let us know who you've been most impressed with this season so far, who you're thinking could be a sleeper, who you're thinking could rise or fall in the standings. Would love to hear your thoughts, mmjhl Nation. It is getting late here, folks. We are going to send it to one last transition here, and then I'll have some final words on this edition of the mmjhl podcast here, live on G-Show Productions. Well, you made it to the end of this edition of the mmjhl podcast, and let me tell you something. Talking for about almost 2 hours, yeah, kind of hard on the voice, to be honest with you. My voice is feeling it after tonight. Also did an MFHL podcast before this one. But as for you MMJHL hockey fans, you made it to the end of another MMJHL podcast. The return of this show here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and potentially subscribe and turn on notifications here so you don't miss any future episodes here regarding the MMJHL. MMJHL Game Day will be returning on Sunday. We'll be live at Transcona's home, East End Arena, 1:50 p.m. Just after that, we'll be starting our pregame show coverage between the Railer Express and the Canucks. Puck drops at 2 p.m. Central Time on Sunday. Next edition of the MMJHL podcast comes out next Thursday. Special thanks to Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Kent Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring another edition of this podcast. I've been your host, Graham the G-Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and saying so long on this Friday night. Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League fans, until next week, 7 days from now, or 6 days from now, as I should say, next Thursday. We'll see you then. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Have a safe one. Enjoy all the great hockey coming your way. Take care.